Welcome to Indian News. Our guest today is senior tech entrepreneur Ashutosh. Recently, few years ago, he sold his Actifio startup to Google. We are going to talk to him about his entrepreneurial journey. Also, we are going to honor him for his business and entrepreneurship at New England Twice Awards Gala on October 29th at Burlington Marriott in Burlington, Massachusetts. Ash, welcome to our show, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Upendra.
Excellent.
For inviting me.
Great. So let's start with a basic question which I'm interested to know is through three startups and great exits, successful exits from those startups, you must have met a lot of entrepreneurs and senior executives. What is the one thing or couple of things you find common among all those tech leaders?
Yeah, I think three common traits.
Okay.
One is getting people on a mission that is much bigger than themselves, that you feel excited and happy to be part of. Two is having a personal passion for that mission, passion for the team. And third one, finding that one that differentiates between those who eventually turn from dreamers to doers is execution. Being able to be very, very clear about the metrics of how we're going to accomplish this mission. Being able to communicate and have an individual clarity, me as a part of the team, on how I'm going to be able to contribute to this execution, to this mission. That's it, those three.
And execution is very critical because you can have all this vision and ideas, but if it is not properly executed, then you waste your time, resources.
I think this is something that every entrepreneur, every businessman, every individual in life knows. Execution eats ideas for lunch, for dinner, for breakfast, every day. And so, if it is only up to ideas, we would all be very, very wealthy, worthy.
Sure. Yeah. And there are plenty of ideas, sure.
Amazing ideas.
Okay. Yeah. So now let's come back. We'll come back to the entrepreneurship a little bit later. But first, let us start with your first startup. When was that, and how did you come to the idea?
Began my entrepreneurial journey in 1997. I was working at a very large tech company. This would be my second job. By that time, I'd been working in the industry for about 7.5 years. I had been fortunate enough to be part of very early cycles of the computation industry, open systems industry. I had some notoriety as being an expert in the storage industry by that time. And I was leading a large team with projects being delayed, not really enjoying the work I was doing, and decided that I need to do something different. And really jumped into it as an accidental entrepreneur, as someone who really wanted to go do something as opposed to knowing exactly what to do. So that was my first jump into foray into entrepreneurship. My wife would see me complaining about going to work every day. And one day she said, well...
And your wife is also an engineer, right?
My wife has been an engineer. She's been my classmate in engineering school. She had a successful career of her own. And she had just taken a break when we were having our second child. And I came back from work one day and said, I really don't like to go to work. I said, okay, you go do what you want to do. I'll go back to work because we also needed health insurance. And I was a naive, accidental entrepreneur with no idea what I was going to do or how I was going to pay for any of that stuff. So it was one of those very different times. and circumstances that probably I would not advise anybody else to follow.
And the company was called?
The company was called Serrano Systems.
Mm-hmm.
It was based out of, eventually, I started in Wichita, Kansas. My co-founders were in Colorado Springs. So we moved there, and the company was based there.
And then it was sold later on?
In 1999, another company called Vitesse Semiconductor, who started seeing that they were a chip company, we were building a chip. They kept seeing that our chip was always next to theirs. And they saw that as an opportunity to have a bigger solution for our customers. They acquired us literally on the second anniversary of the day we founded the company.
Oh, the second anniversary?
Literally the second year two. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, what was the second startup?
So then I moved to Boston in 2000. A neighbor of mine in Colorado Springs had founded a company called Storage Networks, based here in Waltham. And they were taking the company public. He knew that I knew a little about storage, and they were building what you would call today a cloud storage company. So I moved to Boston, be a part of the team that took the company public. But 2001, we ran into the tech bubble, and I had left the company to go start my second company called AppIQ around storage management again.
And that I remember quite well. Yeah, sure.
It's an area you'll see a common theme of throughout my entrepreneurial journey. I keep moving up the stack. As I understand one part of it, I move to the next one, learn some more, and keep moving up the stack. So this was, we went from a chip company to being a customer to moving up to being management storage management software company. So that was started we founded that in 2001. That company, we did very well. We owned majority of the market share by the time we were acquired in 2005 by HP.
And then third one, Actifio?
Yeah, so Actifio was basically incubated / created inside Greylock, where I was a general partner at Greylock as a venture capital firm. We had an investment thesis around how the storage market was evolving as the market had changed, and we saw an opportunity to go build a new business. And we started a company there. I went on to be a CEO for, the original plan was to be there for some time. And then 11 years later, we got acquired by Google.
Okay. So I want to start with 1 second on the storage market. So how much storage we really need, and how the industry, that's one question for you.
Oh yeah, storage market is one of those amazingly resilient markets. Even bad news needs to be stored. Market goes down, you need to store that. Market goes up, you need to store that. Probably more resilient than even a lawyer market, legal market.
Really?
Seriously, it is. And look at this. What we're recording here is being stored somewhere. It's going to be propagated to various media where it's going to be stored again.
And many times it will be stored.
Many times it will be stored. And so, but the value proposition keeps moving up in the storage industry. When I started, it was about fundamentally figuring out how to store something. Then my second company was how to manage what was stored. My third company was about what to do with the data that was stored. And today I'm at Google, where it's all about data. It's about how do you really make lives better.
So now, if you look at today's market, the technology and evolution of entrepreneurship, what are the 3 advice you will give to somebody today who wants to start a tech entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. Well, first thing I would say, from my personal vantage point and experience, 3 things are required and a few things that you should watch out for. Number 1, you absolutely have to create a career and a passion out of something you really love. Because there will be inevitably bad times. There will be inevitably, you're out of the hype cycle of what you were doing before. There will inevitably be a situation where you're out of the news, and you still need to love doing that. That's number 1, passion.
The passion.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to absolutely believe in it. In fact, I would say any entrepreneur, who's really gone through the journey realizes and admits to it that that's the one that keeps them going, because times are tough. In entrepreneur's journey, not unlike human life, just regular life where you have highs and lows, but entrepreneurship has lots of very highs and lots of very lows.
Mm-hmm.
That brings up the second thing you need, a good family support system,
Mm-hmm.
because a good supportive family helps you ground those highs and make sure the lows are not as lows.
Mm-hmm.
So it's super important to have.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you mentioned family, because when we talk about entrepreneurship and business, we focus a lot about the technology and the money and the investments and outcomes. And we completely miss about the family part of this, which is such a fundamental, huge.
It is huge. It is huge because, when you are on the entrepreneurial journey and things are going amazingly well, you think it's all because of you.
Hmm.
Anybody who's examined it very closely knows it is not.
Mm-hmm.
Very little of it is because of you. Yes, you have seized upon the opportunities that have come along, but the opportunities actually came along. You didn't create them yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you have a purpose. We talked about having a mission, having a purpose much bigger than ourselves, and having a strong family is one of those.
So I'm glad that you mentioned again about the mission, and you also said that the leader or founder has to really have all the team to really start believing in that mission.
Yeah.
How the ego comes in that place there. So the mission is, it is the whole thing about the mission, but somehow the ego creeps in.
Yeah.
And so just talk a bit about the role of ego in entrepreneurship.
You need two key ingredients to be an entrepreneur. Number one, you have to be highly delusional.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Highly delusional.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who is very pragmatic, practical, can never be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Because by definition, you're trying to do something that nobody else has done before, which means you have to be delusional that somehow you are capable of making this change happen.
Mm-hmm.
Second, everybody in this entrepreneurship journey has to have a healthy sense of ego.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what really powers
The
you.
healthy, the underlying word is healthy. Keyword is healthy.
Yeah, and because that's what powers you through. Because everybody you go through tells you, bullshit, that is not possible to do. And by definition, because it's not been done before. It's not like you're just improving something. You're fundamentally doing something different. And if you don't have a sense of ego that, yeah, I hear you, but I think I can do it. That level of ego that somehow you can do it. And you can call it confidence, you can call it arrogance, or you can call it ego. But there's a sense of like, I am able to accomplish this despite everybody else telling me not true, not possible. You need both of those. You need a sense of delusion to believe and a sense of ego to push through that belief so they can actually execute. But healthy part, you're right.
So now when when it's a tough journey to be an entrepreneur, no matter how wonderful it sounds later on, or, and it can be very, what was one of the worst moments in your entrepreneurial journey?
It is, and what you say is very, very true. It is very tough. And that's why I keep coming back to, as much as it's tough on the individual during the difficult times, both in the good and the difficult times, it's actually tougher on the family. So in my case, my wife took a backseat to her successful career. She put a lot of hours into making sure I'm able to pursue my passion. My kids took a backseat to make sure that dad had enough time to go take his calls in the middle of some drive somewhere that we were supposed to be on. So those are tough. But the toughest ones you get through because you do have those supportive ones. And the toughest part, frankly, is, we talked about those two things, passion and a family. The third one truly is surrounding yourself with other passionate people. Because the energy you get out of getting inspired by people who are as passionate, sometimes more, who are as capable, oftentimes more, that is infectious. That's what drives you. And sometimes you get into a trouble where the business is not completely going the way you expect it to be. And you have to take some hard decisions around reducing the number of people involved or changing directions or sometimes stalling some of those things. And those are hard. Those are always very, very hard.
So now you have sat on both sides of the venture capital world. And so how the venture capital industry is changing itself and what impact it is having today on the entrepreneurial world.
I think it begins, if you step back a little on the impact on the venture world, it begins with the speed of the changes of the technology cycles. There was a time when my generation had the opportunity to perfect a craft for 7 to 8 years, become experts for the next 8-10 years, and then build an entire career on that one for the next 20 years, including startups. The speed of change, the number of cycles at which technology is changing, sometimes is shelf life of 2.5, 3 years. So you could be in college in year one, thinking you're going to pursue this thing, and by the time you graduate, everything that you thought about has changed. At least the hype cycle has changed. And so I think it's very important to try to figure out if what you want to pursue is something that is truly deep enough, and what you want to really get to is something that is independent of the hype cycles. But it is actually a challenge for entrepreneurs to say, okay, I need to go pursue this for a long term. And then you follow through on the VC side. It becomes harder for an investor to say, I need to now put multiple bets many, many times over. There was a time when you could.
So, what is the one turn off for the VCs when a startup entrepreneur makes a presentation and the one thing in the middle and suddenly the entrepreneur says this and say, you know what, it's not worth funding?
I don't think there's one thing,
or maybe a couple of things.
but I'm just thinking, again, I talk about early stage investing. Late stage investing is a very different game.
Okay.
Right? By that time, you're really talking about how to scale up a business. And there are some very key set of metrics you can look at to see whether this is a good thing or wrong thing. But let's talk about early stage. Early stage investing is some of the toughest thing to do. And entrepreneurs usually don't understand. Oftentimes, if you're a VC, I come and pitch to you and you tell me like, hey, Ash, great idea, but we're going to pass. And I walk out of the whole meeting saying, Upendra just never got it. He just didn't get what I'm trying to say. And it's not because you didn't get it. It should really be my job to make sure you understand. Right? I'm an entrepreneur.
Sure.
You are meeting people like me 15 times a day. And so the first thing you see is the person, is the ability for someone to really have, demonstrate that passion, demonstrate that commitment, demonstrate that genuine authenticity. I think that's the one thing that people invest in. Right? Because who knows what this idea is all about?
So what are some of the big stumbling blocks for the early startups? Why they fail?
Oh, so many different reasons.
Like if you can just talk about a few.
Yeah. I think you probably mistimed the market. So if you're doing everything right, sometimes you mistime the market. You're too early, too late, or the market has changed on you.
Which is happening more and more.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. So that's number one, I would say, assuming you did everything right. Now, there are things that you could do wrong. You talked about ego. Oftentimes, you start to associate yourself with all of the success, not realizing that almost the middle of it is because of you. Oftentimes, it's the team, the circumstances. And so when you put yourself as the person that is completely tied to what this company is about, sometimes you make very incorrect decisions when things change. Sometimes you run out of cash. which is a very practical thing.
Mhm.
Once again, because you didn't take those first two things that we talked about, mistime the market, or you pursue.
So what about, I want to talk to you both as an entrepreneur as well as a venture capitalist, that when you're talking to the entrepreneurs, how much the emphasis or focus should be given to monetization of the whatever you are doing? Not necessarily, sometimes people get very hyped about the idea and all this stuff and changing the world and technology. But how much emphasis should go to monetization?
300%.
Hmm.
300%. If you are not focused on monetization, it's a hobby.
Hmm.
If it's a business, it's all about monetization.
Hmm.
Because there are people who depend on you, including your family,
Hmm.
including your employees,
Mhm.
your colleagues, your investors, even your customers. They want you to be successful. They can't afford for you not to be financially successful. So, short of, if you're going to call it a business, it is about monetization.
Hmm.
100%.
Now, you mentioned the role of family in the entrepreneurship, which is very important. So you must be the luckiest guy because you married somebody whom you met in your school, and then she has been your life partner, mother of your kids, and all this stuff, and gone through all these several cycles of startups. So I just want you to reflect a little bit about falling in love with your wife and her role in your business career.
So we met when we were about 17 or 18. Maybe what you would call a freshman / sophomore year of college or engineering school. Both of us went to the same school. And then we got married a couple of years after that, right after we graduated. And the part that I always liked about Sridevi was she was brutally frank. Right? I wasn't. I was much more diplomatic. I was much more cautious about offending people. But it was amazing to see someone who could basically just say it as she saw it without being offensive. Lots of people who can say some things. And I think that was a good balance for what I was trying to do. For someone who could tell me when I need to be grounded during those euphoric moments, but at the same time be extremely supportive when you have the really bad times. She was going to have a great career. She was an engineer. She was working for a very large tech company. And when it came down to pulling the short straw on who was going to stay home because one of our kids was having a asthma problem at that time. One of us had to stay home. It could have been either of us. I think I took the easy route and I won the lottery and went there. But it's challenging. You think about the toughest part of an entrepreneur's journey is the entrepreneur's family. They go through it. And the fact that I actually still have one is a testament to what she has done. I could say the same thing about our two boys, by the way. And they grew up seeing.
Yeah, that was my next question. That what you tell your kids, what you how do you look at them growing up?
Yeah, I think my wife set the stage. As kids, you see a lot what their parents do. She set the stage for making sure that the family at least sacrificed everything and took a backseat to allow me to pursue. By the way, there is no guarantee that what I was going to do was going to be financially or monetarily good or bad. You just take the chance. To have a family that's supportive of allowing you to pursue your passion without knowing if there was going to be a zero or a negative or a positive return, that's hard. That's very few people can expect to get that kind of a support, and I'm fortunate enough to have that. And our boys grew up, when they must have been, our second son was literally born when I started the first company. So they grew up watching me start companies in the basement. and watched dad take calls at 2 a.m., watched dad get on the phone in the middle of a conversation that they were having. So they learned a few things. I think the work ethic is something that I hope I've imparted on them, that it's super important to be committed to a mission, be very professional about what it takes to execute on that mission. Um, but they have their own lives.
Sure.
They choose what they want to pursue.
Now, when we talk about entrepreneurship, often we hear, "Oh, I was lucky enough to get these things done." Sometimes you have a tremendous passion. Sometimes you're very lucky with the idea. You have a good product, good market condition. And do you ever think about luck?
All the time. I think, there's an old story about, hey, do you have to be smart or do you have to be lucky to be successful? And my summary is, you just have to be smart enough to know when you're lucky. But things happen all the time.
Mm.
You just have to be in the game, aware, but a lot of stuff happens despite you.
Mm.
And I think any entrepreneur who's gone through a journey will tell you luck / circumstances had to play a big role in their outcomes, good or bad.
Mm.
I think we were talking earlier about how much we control and how much of stuff happens out of our control. The only way you actually can affect an outcome is by being in the game.
Mm. Yeah, that's for sure. You know that very well.
That part, that's the only thing you can do, is constantly be in the game, expand the surface area where luck can touch you, and seize upon the opportunity when it happens. But luck is a big part.
So now luck also plays an important role in, you don't choose your family, yes, you were born in certain families and then you were stuck with that.
Yeah.
And so I want to also talk to you about your upbringing and family. I think off the record off the camera we're talking about, and you mentioned that how inspired you are by your mom, who ran for a political office in India. So just talk about your growing up in India.
Yeah, I grew up, I'm very fortunate. I think I've said this many times. I'm fortunate, I'm thankful, I'm grateful. Almost nothing negative in my life that's gone through since I was born. As a kid, I think my parents pretty much gave me every possible opportunity that I needed. I went to a great school called Hyderabad Public School in Hyderabad, one of the best schools, where I was allowed to do all kinds of things. I wasn't a great student. I wasn't an academically great student. But I pursued pretty much everything, sports and music and culture and yeah, once in a while some academics too. So the ability for them, while they were living in a small village, to put me in a boarding school far away from them, the ability for them to allow me to do things that otherwise would have been just focus on the academics and get something done, which is probably more conventional what I've seen in other friends of mine. They've been amazing. They've been amazing parents. Gave me all kinds of support system to allow me to really explore different things.
What inspires you? Or what has inspired you?
Yeah, I think, I get up every day and want to make sure by end of the day I've added some value. I've added something good to the day, something good to people's lives. And it seems like a pretty big thing, but oftentimes there are times when nothing happens in the day. And it's 11 o'clock at night, and I'm coming close to the end of the day. Then I go figure out how to fix an appliance, fix something that I feel like I've gotten.
So you are very handy?
I'm very handy. I pretty much do everything except plumbing. I get worried about water.
Okay.
Because those are dangerous things at homes. But I'm very, very handy at fixing. I'm an engineer. I love engineering. I love technology. I love how technology can truly bring a positive change.
The craziest thing you have fixed?
Craziest things I've fixed. Let me think about that and come back.
Okay. Yeah. Something you thought it was very insignificant, but you thought, oh, it can be fixed, and you.
Yeah. I will give it a thought. There are so many of them.
Okay.
And,
So now let's come back to. Want to just get your some thoughts, and I might ask you some just random questions.
Yeah.
So I know you had a love marriage. When I say love, what really comes to your mind?
I think as I grow older, I ponder a few things. Right? You try to find somebody who compliments, who really is supportive, in the long run. And but this, the older I get, I realize this is a hard thing to get in life. Especially when I see more of the life, I realize that I've been very, very fortunate enough to find love, and how hard it is to get over a long term, or even get it over a long term.
Well, again, as you said earlier, luck is very important.
No doubt. I mean, I could have been in some other engineering school. And there was an incident that caused me to first meet Sridevi. Maybe that wouldn't have happened.
Do you remember what she was wearing when you met her the first time? I don't know, it's a tough question, Or you have some sort of a context, how do you meet her?
Yeah, I was I think I met her. It was one of those, I think it was a freshman year, and there were some people teasing her. And
which was very common at those days in India.
Yeah. And for some strange reason, it wasn't because I knew her at all, but I stood up and basically escorted her out of wherever that place was off outside the campus.
Sounds like a very Bollywood style.
It is, but as I think about it now, I don't think it was intended to be to get her attention. It was more of like you saw something going wrong, and you just, and like I told you, I grew up in a school where we didn't know people's last names. We literally didn't know. I just knew you as Upendra. I didn't know what your last name was. I didn't know who your parents were. You just focused on doing the right things. And that was one of those things. And that's probably the first time I actually saw her and met her. And then I think we were in the same school, same years. And we got to know each other.
What about now? Since I mentioned Bollywood, I have to ask this question. Who is your, have you watched Bollywood movies?
I do a lot.
Okay, which was the latest movie you watched?
I've been watching a little more of the Telugu movies too, in addition to Bollywood. The one that's just left us, this both Sridevi and me, speechless is this movie called Baby. It's a Telugu movie. It's one of those more modern ones where the best movies are where there are no villains, no heroes, and everyone is flawed. And you can relate to the reality, but you don't want to accept it. You want a good, happy ending, and usually there aren't. So that was one of those movies. And I think as you get older, you're looking for movies with substance versus just entertainment.
Right, sure.
And so I think that was one of them. And I think there are some.
Now, off the camera, when we were chatting, you mentioned that recently you watched this Rani Rocky or something, that movie. And your take on that grandmother was very interesting. I found like many people would say, oh my God, what a great character she is and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But you had a very different take on her. So I want you to talk about that a little bit, what you think about her role.
So this is the movie Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahan.
Prem Kahan, yeah, exactly, yes.
And we just watched it last night. And so it's a classic movie where everybody relates to a villain. You need to make a villain out of somebody, which is the masala.
Yeah.
And you need to give love, quote unquote, love as the victorious in this process. And in this case, the love has to be something that is open to all. It has something that includes everybody. But I saw this character of his grandmother who in her circumstances, if you go back to where she came from, she did everything possible to protect her family, build up financial security, ensure that there was a mode of operation for the entire family, so that in her view, what she knew was the best way to keep this family together and keep them financially secure. And as the generations progress, coming from wealth suddenly gives you a thought process of exploring other things. And the third generation has even more ideas that I'm so secure, I'm going to be inheriting all this stuff anyway, so therefore I don't have to worry about all the things that the grandmother had. So when the movie turns into basically creating the villain out of this grandmother, everybody turning against her, it seems very strange. It seems very strange.
Yeah, it was. I had never thought from that point of view.
Yeah.
But, what you said really made me think about that movie.
Yeah.
And look at her character, and this is again, if you look at the entrepreneurial journey, we're talking about business entrepreneurship, the financial security is very, very important.
Yeah.
Because a lot of thoughts and ideas come to our head when we are financially secure. We don't have to worry about paying our mortgage or, fees and all that stuff. We can do whatever we want to do. And that grandmother does that, see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let us move to related with Bollywood.
Let me pause on that one.
Go
I
ahead.
think for the grandmother to be quote unquote financially successful, she actually was financially insecure. And that forced her. The rest of you can almost extrapolate. You can take the version 2 of this movie and show how this next generation completely destroyed the business she's done, which is, there's a very old saying by the ruler of UAE who says, look, my grandfather used to ride a camel. My father used to ride a car. I ride a Land Rover. And my grandson is going to ride a camel. Right? From the old saying.
Yeah.
Bad times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men again. And so this is a cycle that occurs.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. Okay. So now let's talk about your favorite singer.
Yeah, I have, I would say, a few. Among the old guard, it's Jagjit Singh. And of course, the goddess of it all, Lata Mangeshkar. Among the new breed, Arijit Singh and Shreya Ghoshal. This lady somehow, I don't know how she does it, but she seems to make even the original better.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
So I think she had that, she expresses those, the lyrics into the real feelings. And I think that's what really attracts us, because it sounds so real that you are living that song, not you are just listening.
Yeah, but to be able to make a Lata Mangeshkar song sound better,
Sure.
that is an impossible task. She does it.
So now I have to ask you is, I know you were born and grew up in Andhra Pradesh, and you seem to love all these Hindi, Urdu type of songs. So tell me, it seems like you must be a linguist or have a exposure to multiple languages.
Yeah. So I was born and effectively brought up in Hyderabad, and the state was Andhra Pradesh, is now Telangana. But that was an area ruled by Nizam, multicultural, multilingual, from the very beginning. The neighborhood I grew up in fact, my mother's side of the family comes from Maharashtra. They are Deshpandes. So I speak Marathi with my mother and her family. In fact, the neighborhood I grew up in Hyderabad very early on was a lot of Maharashtrians in there. My father was from Telangana and did some of the Urdu education. So I know Hindi and I speak Hindi with him. My wife is from Telangana, so I speak Telugu. And of course, I went to English medium school. And so 4 languages was something that was just part of the hour to hour, not even a day-to-day life for us. And Hyderabad itself is a very unique mix of
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Seems like
it's an amazing town. Now, it started out that way. In between, it had become a little more single language with the rise of a few parties. But then, as a result of IT, once again, it's become a hub of pretty much all kinds of languages and cultures.
So let's continue with our the questions. So the one is, did you have any mentor who really?
Yeah, I think we talked about this saying that I live by, which is, you love the idea, don't love the person.
Yes.
Because the ideas persist.
Yeah.
And people eventually disappoint. So I have learned a lot from various people throughout my life, whether it's, like as my parents in my childhood, this one biology teacher who changed my life in school. I told you I was a very mediocre student. This person changed, or hundreds and thousands of my colleagues that I worked with. These are amazingly passionate people, amazingly smart people, or investors. And frankly, friends, you are an amazing person. I mean, to be able to take the leap of what you have done and go into an area that is not the doctor, engineer, entrepreneur stuff, that tech entrepreneur stuff, or Dr. Manju, who jumps from what she does into a completely different. These are inspiring. It's not one person, but I think this whole concept of somebody pursuing a passion, adding value, changing lives in whatever tools that you have, that I love. That I love. So, kudos to you.
Thank you.
I know we've known each other for some time, and we watched how you go back and build something that is very unconventional, very hard to do.
Thank you.
That takes
so now in that context also, I think I love your idea about, that you don't fall in love with that person, but I think that the concept and the idea is much saner way to deal with, because people will change, the circumstances will change, the behavior will change, but the idea, I think if it is on the solid ground is going to be there. No emotions involved there.
Exactly.
Now, if I ask you through our entire journey, what is one weakness thing you have that, I wish I didn't have that, or you struggle with that weakness?
I think I'm very much an optimist, to the point where even though I can see some things maybe negative, including in people, I look for what is the positive part of that person or that idea. I think I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I just love somebody who's passionately doing something or pursuing something. And sometimes I think I may give people way too much of benefit of doubt or let them go way too far, even though I know it may not be the right thing. But it's just hard to curb the enthusiasm of people who are just passionately pursuing something. I think I've gotten better as I got older. But I think that's one area I sometimes think.
What about your strength? Like, you think that, you know what, I have this, and
that is my strength too, unfortunately. I have the ability, I think, to convert what could be a dream into something monetizable, something that adds value. And it's the optimism, the delusion, the ego that we talked about, that you have to power through some of these that is not possible and turn it into possible. So I think it's the same thing, the very same nature of optimism that really helps in power becomes a challenge when it goes a little too far.
Your last word on life and entrepreneurship. Let's be easy on you. Let's start with the entrepreneurship and then.
I think Entrepreneurship is about, the definition is pretty straightforward, but if you just turn it into how can I apply what I have, what little tools I have, what little skills I have into something positive for the bigger mission we talked about. Yes, the execution of the mission turns into a financial and monetary return. That is such a great way to live a life. You've changed. You've created some footprints on the sands that made some change for a little while. Nothing lasts forever. So I think I love the idea that when I first left my job, you for the first time as an entrepreneur, you realize you're completely on your own. As of now, the world is going to measure you by what you're worth, not by the company you have and the badge you have and the plate and the business card you have anymore. I think that feeling of what my worth is on my own, how I'm able to contribute and convert that into something meaningful, that's an amazing life to live. It's an amazing life to live. And
and how does the life play this game? If you want to call it a game, but how? I know it's a very philosophical question. But I would like to take get your take on going through all these, like 3 very successful exits, what you were doing with yourself, your life, family and everything. When you coming from Hyderabad, to here and doing all these, living these exciting times, what does this make you think about life?
I think, there's a level of, a couple of things I'll tell you. First thing, another saying I live by is, in the long term, nothing matters. But in the moments, every moment of the long term, everything matters.
Very nice. Yeah, sure.
Because in the end, you just say, okay, look, you don't matter. You don't matter. And you can always take a fatalistic approach of, I don't matter, and therefore it doesn't matter anymore. But every moment you have that was given to you, everything matters. Every ounce of passion that you put in there to do something different. So I think that's a big part of how you think about life. You can take the moment you have and do something with it, or just assume a fatalistic approach and say, it doesn't matter anymore. And then there are some beautiful songs that I love that go with that. And I think,
give me one example.
Well, 3 that I really love, and I'm sure and you talked about life. Both of them, the song and the saying comes from the same movie. My favorite movie called Anand. They talk about how
sure.
जिंदगी बड़ी होनी चाहिए, लंबी नहीं. That is so super important. You don't know how lumpy it will be.
Sure.
But you certainly can make it as buddy as you can. And in that movie also, the song, that's one. The second one, as you get older, is the song from the movie Shore. And I think the ultimate one, as you get older, is the Varanam Joker song. Jeena Yahan, Marna Yahan. I think, but during that, it's here. The life is here. It's on this place. You make it matter as much as you can, even though you know it may not matter at the end. But you make it matter while it's here.
What you said, I just remember before we went out into it, I just want to mention it. So there is a book called Yog Vasist. So, which is basically a conversation between when Rama is teenager, he's in total depression. And then Vasista comes and they start talking. And Vasista tells Rama that, look, as long as you are alive, the world exists. If you are not alive, then the world doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So take care of yourself first.
Exactly.
And that's what exactly everything is happening here. Take care of yourself, be happy, and live your life.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, we are so fortunate, right? We all need to be so grateful, so thankful that we are given the opportunity. We live in a phenomenal country. Here.
Yeah, sure.
We have an incredibly supportive ecosystem. I have a very small group of friends,
Mm.
and it is such a joy
Yeah.
to have that support system. To be not happy with that sounds like a complete sin.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, sin.
Good. On that note, thank you very much
Thank you.
for coming, and really enjoyed chatting with you. And we are looking forward to seeing you on October 29th.
Likewise, and I hope I get to see a bunch of my friends who will be there too.
Excellent. Sure. Perfect.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.